Welcome to Daily Living with Father Chapin, where we cruise through the Catholic liturgy of the Word, trying to dig out the deeper meanings of Scripture and how they might apply to our daily living. Yes, my friend, that is what we do. Here we ask ourselves questions. Questions like, hey, what do these Gospels have to do with me? That's what I want to know. How can I take these Gospels and apply them into my daily living so that I can become a reflection of God's love to a world, let's face it, don't know God for sure, and is definitely in deep need of more love. I mean, take a look around. There's a lot of bad news bears out there. How can I take the good news of Jesus Christ, apply it into my daily living so that I can become a light in that darkness, a tool in the hand of God making present His kingdom, not someday, but today and every day. And that's what this show is all about. And I'm so glad that you could join us today as we celebrate the Epiphany of the Lord here on Daily Living. You know, got big news, okay? We've been working on this for a while, but finally, we've got a website that has current shows. The last 4 shows, the last month of shows, should be up and running at this moment on mydailyliving.com. Now, I got plans, got big dreams for this website. I'm hoping to include the radio show as well. I'm hoping to include scripts. I'm hoping to include homilies, different links to different things. There's a whole lot of potential here. So I'm just letting you know that we're working on it. And if you ever miss a show, maybe you just want to catch up, maybe you want to watch it again, you can always click to mydailyliving.com and it's all right there. What do you say we just calm our minds? Put ourselves in the presence of God. You know, we spend so much time running here, running there, doing this, doing that. How often do we just stop and say, what am I doing? Where am I going? The good news about the good news is that God wants to lead you with the quiet voice, and He does it in many ways. One very powerful way He does it is through His Word, because His Word is alive. It will speak to you. It will speak to me, and often in different ways, and both are correct. So what do you say? I quit yipping about it. My prayer is that it will speak to you today. We're going to school, my friend. Are you ready to be the student? We're hearing from the Gospel of Matthew today as we celebrate this special feast of the Epiphany. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of King Herod, behold, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star at its rising and have come to do him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was greatly troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Assembling the chief priests and the scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They said to him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it has been written through the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, since from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and ascertained from them the time of the star's appearance. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word, that I too may go and do him homage." After their audience with the king, they set out, and behold, the star that they had seen at its rising preceded them, until it came and stopped over the place where the child was. They were overjoyed at seeing the star, and on entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. They prostrated themselves and did him homage. Then they opened their treasures and offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed for their country by another way. Well, that's our gospel. There's a whole lot here, my friend. So what do you say? You stick around. We'll be right back. This is Daily Living. I'm Father Chapin. You hang out. We're going to talk about this gospel and a whole lot more here as we celebrate the Epiphany of the Lord. Hi, this is Father Chapin, host of Daily Living with Father Chapin. I have to say, one of the most satisfying things that has ever happened to me in my ministry is walking down the street and having a complete stranger come up to me and say, "You know what? My husband or my wife," it's usually the husband, never goes to church, never watches any kind of religious broadcast, but watches you. I'm humbled. But the only way I'm able to do that, to reach that person, is through gifts like yours. I would like you to prayerfully consider a gift to Daily Living at 325 West Main Street, White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, 24986, so we can reach that person and the thousands just like them.
Thank you for watching Daily Living with Father Chapin. To help support this television ministry, please send your tax-deductible donations to Daily Living, 325 West Main Street, White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, 24986.
Welcome back to Daily Living. So here we are, the Epiphany. The Christmas train has just run right on through. Many of us have already taken our tree to the curb. Maybe the ornaments and the lights and the decorations have all been packed away, or maybe the tree is still up as we cling to that last remnant of Christmas cheer. But as we stand in the glow of the Christmas season, I got a question. Did you get it, my friend? Did I get it? Did we truly get it? And I'm not talking about a particular present we might have been looking to get, but no, I'm talking about what Christmas was really all about. Because let me tell you, it's easy to miss it among the reindeer and the ho, ho, ho. And I don't want to get all Ebenezer Scrooge on you here, but if you look at the way our world celebrates Christmas, it seems to have very little to do with Jesus. Seems that Jesus has been squeezed out of it all. And I know that keep the Christ in Christmas is a well-tread slogan, but it is a legitimate question. Did we really get it? I remember as a kid growing up, every year we would have a manger scene under the tree. Jesus would be in the middle, of course, in a little feeding trough. You had Mary in blue and white, right? And you had Joseph behind her, keeping an eye on the situation. You had shepherds, had the star on top. But you had these three strange figures off to the side. They didn't look like everybody else. They were dressed in different clothes. They didn't seem to fit, and they had this wild thing called a camel. Who are these people? Well, our gospel features them today. They're called magi, coming from the word magus, which means priestly class from the ancient Persia. That's not the town of Persia, but the ancient country of Persia. Now, we don't know a whole lot about the Magi outside of the gospel, so it's based largely on tradition. Let me begin by pointing out the fact that we don't know for sure that there were three of them. I mean, it's not particularly or specifically numbered in the scripture, but we know they had three gifts: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. The gold represents kingship. The frankincense represents deity. The myrrh represents burial. Now, they're a very important sect of priests out of Persia. I guess the closest thing we would come in the Catholic Church would be cardinals. For centuries, tradition has grown around the Magi. By the 3rd century, they were kings. By the 6th century, they had names: Melchior, Gaspar, and Balthasar. Soon they were the three sons of Noah, one representing Asia, one representing Africa, one representing Europe. But what do we really know about these priestly people out of Persia? Well, it's a hereditary priesthood, we know. And we know they're from Media, or the Medes. That's in the east. They're scholars of the law. In fact, did you know that magi is where we get the word magistrate? They're well schooled in all the arts, philosophy, theology. They certainly would know a lot about mathematics and all these types of things. They have an extraordinary knowledge of religion. They were familiar with all the major world religions. They were God experts, okay? You got a question about God, these are your go-to guys, okay? They were also known for their ability to interpret dreams. Kings of old would summon them to interpret their dreams. Speaking of dreams, there's this great story in the book of Daniel. During the time of the Babylonian exile, this is when Babylon had come in and conquered Israel, taking them all off into slavery. It's known as the diaspora. Now, the king of Babylon was Nebuchadnezzar. Now, Nebuchadnezzar was quite troubled by a dream. And for whatever reason, his own magi, they just couldn't seem to understand what the dream meant. So he had heard about this mysterious man called Daniel among the captive Jews. He had heard that he was a prophet and he had the ability to interpret dreams. So King Nebuchadnezzar summoned Daniel to the royal court and told him about the dream. And Daniel interpreted the dream for him. He was so pleased, King Nebuchadnezzar, that he gave Daniel the title Rab-Mag, which means chief of the Magi. So here you have a captured Jew, enslaved Jew, been put in place over the hereditary Median priesthood of the Magi, which they didn't like that so much. And they ended up plotting against him and throwing him into the lion's den, which didn't really work out too well for them. But anyway, back to the story of Daniel. He had a lot of visions. And one of the visions that he shared with the Persians was this vision of an appearance of a star, announcing the coming of the new Messiah. So the Magi were holding a secret in Persia. Now, let's just stop the tape for a second to review some, military history. It's important to give us context. In the 63rd BC, Roman General Pompey conquered Jerusalem. And he tried to conquer the neighboring Persians, but he was pushed back by the Parthians. Soon the Babylonians, along with the Medes, retook Jerusalem for themselves, and the Roman puppet king Herod had to flee the city. He ran to Caesar Augustus, begged him to send an army to restore him to the throne, and they did, but it took them 3 years. After 3 years, they reconquered Jerusalem, put Herod back in the throne of power in exchange for his loyalty to Rome. Consequently, Jerusalem sits right in the middle of two warring empires. So you can kind of see why he was so paranoid. He knows he's illegitimate. He knows that his subjects hate him. And he knows that at any time, one of his subjects, or several of them, can conspire with the Medes to bring him down. So with all that in mind, let's talk about our gospel. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem in the days of King Herod, behold, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star at its rising and have come to do him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was greatly troubled, and all of Jerusalem with him. So let's look at this. These Magi, these strange men, they show up. Now understand, given their stature and their wealth, their status, and the tension between these two countries. Remember now, Jerusalem is an occupied country. They're occupied by the Romans. The Romans are the enemy. Okay, I seriously doubt these Magi would have showed up alone. No, they would have had an escort, a considerable escort, a bit of an army escorting them. So once again, they show up. King Herod is greatly troubled. Probably figures they're scouting it out for the inevitable attack from Persia. All right? No wonder. Herod is a very nervous guy. And all of Jerusalem is very nervous as well. I remember as a kid thinking, well, what's the problem with these people? They're just stopping by for directions, right? Well, no, it was a little more than that. It was sort of like the Cuban Missile Crisis, you know. That was the backdrop to what is going on here. And I'm thinking, what are these Magi thinking? I mean, remember, Jerusalem is the center of of Judaism. Okay, the center of the faith, and they have traveled a long way to seek out the promised Messiah of the Jews. They have followed the star at its rising, and I imagine they must have thought there's going to be a huge celebration when we finally get there because the long-awaited Messiah has arrived. I imagine they must have thought there'd be dancing in the streets, almost like a Mardi Gras situation. So imagine their surprise when they finally do arrive to the holy city of Jerusalem, and it's just business as usual. They're just going about their day. And then they get in front of the king. We saw the star at its rising. We've come to do him homage. And what does he say? Star? What star? This is Daily Living. I'm Father Chapin. You hang out. We'll be right back, and we will continue to talk about this amazing gospel here as we celebrate the Epiphany of the Lord. Hi, this is Father Chapin, host of Daily Living. What a pleasure it is to come into your home each and every week to spread the good news, but it's very expensive. Now, I got good news and bad news. The good news is we got plenty of money. The bad news is still in your pocket. So if you'd like to help the ministry, please send a check to Daily Living at 325 West Main Street. White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia, 24986. And together we take the good news to a lost world. Welcome back to Daily Living. Now, just for the break, we had these strange magi. They're showing up from the east. They've been seeking a star. They've been following this star. And they find themselves in downtown Jerusalem, seeking an audience with the king. They get in front of the king. His name is Herod. And they have a question. Where is the newborn king of the Jews? And Herod's thinking, newborn king? What newborn king? You have to understand, this is a huge insult to Herod. I'm the king, and there is only room for one king in this town. All right? Now, remember, he had bribed his way into his kingship, putting money in the right pockets. He knows he's illegitimate. Worse yet, he has no idea what they're talking about, king of the Jews. No clue. He doesn't know anything about a promised Messiah. So he calls his chief priests in, his scribes, convenes an emergency meeting in the situation room, because it's definitely a situation, right? He stands at the head of the table. He says, what are these people talking about? They don't make any specific reference to a star, but they do know where the promised Messiah is to be born. They said to him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it has been written in the prophet, and you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least of the rulers of Judah, since from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel. They're quoting Micah. The Messiah is to be born in Bethlehem, which is about 9 miles outside of Jerusalem. So Herod calls Magi and secretly ascertains from them the time of the star's appearance. I can just hear it now. Oh, really? So tell me about this star. When exactly did it appear? Taking the information that he got from his own people, he sends them off to Bethlehem. Now, he says, go diligently and search for the child. And when you have found him, send me word that I too may go and do him homage. Now, you could say all you want to say about Herod. I mean, I'll give you the fact that he was a paranoid, bloodthirsty killer for sure. He was a lot of things. But let me tell you one thing he wasn't. He wasn't stupid. He did not get to where he was by being careless. So I'm a bit confused here why at this point he regards them as so little of a threat. I mean, he really, because if he did see them, if he did take this seriously, he's not really a religious man. He could have easily sent soldiers to kind of keep an eye on him, but he doesn't. Just sends them off into the night. Go as you wish. Do not let me inhibit you in any way. Let me know when you find the child so I can too do him homage, which you know he's never going to do. He just wants to destroy that child because the child is a threat to his power. Now, remember, he's paranoid on a good day, okay? So off they go. After their audience with the king, they set out. And behold, the star that they had seen at its rising preceded them, until it came and stopped over the place where the child was. They were overjoyed at seeing the star, and on entering the house, they saw the child with his mother, and they prostrated, did him homage, and offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And have been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed to their country by another way. Now, the star that they had seen at its rising preceded them. Now, I live in the southern hills of West Virginia. I live in the mountains. It's beautiful at night. I've seen many a starry night. I've never seen one precede me, and I've never seen one rise directly over my house. In fact, I've often wondered, how would you know you were under the star precisely? But they did. They find the child, they prostrate themselves, they offer him gifts. It's a fortune. Gifts certainly fit for a king. Now, remember, I told you what they represented. Gold was kingship, frankincense was deity, and myrrh was burial. But let me tell you what they represented to Joseph. Cash. Cash that he would need soon because he's about ready to be warned in a dream to get out of town immediately. And he flees into Egypt. He didn't have the money to do that, but now he does. Because God does provide now, doesn't he? God's got a habit of writing straight with crooked lines. Speaking of dreams, the Magi were also warned in a dream not to return to Herod, which is not a small thing. They are guests in his country. He is the king. He told them to let him know, which is essentially a royal decree. And by slipping out the double secret back way, okay, they're taking a huge risk if they get caught. But then again, sometimes doing God's will involves risk. When Herod finds out that he's been double-crossed, I mean, he is mad. Ooh, he's mad. And sets into motion one of the most tragic scenes in all of the New Testament. When Herod realized that he had been deceived by the Magi, he became furious and ordered the massacre of all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity 2 years and under, in accordance with the time that he ascertained from the Magi. Then what was fulfilled through the prophet Jeremiah, a voice was heard in Ramah sobbing, loud lamentation, Rachel weeping for her children, and she would not be consoled since they were no more. You see, let me tell you about the Christmas story. It's a real story. It happened in a real place and a real time. It's a story about warring empires. It's a story about ego. It's a story about political intrigue. It's a story about vicious jealousy and suspicion. It's a story about slaughtering the innocent babies, okay? And as the world turns, not much has changed. Look at what's going on in our world today. Look at modern Persia today, which is the Sinai Peninsula. It used to be called Arabia. Today it's called Iran, Iraq, Syria, Turkey. Doesn't seem like things have calmed down over there too much now, has it? And in regards to the slaughtering of the babies, do I need to even say it? Like I said, not much has changed now, has it? So, what does this story mean for you and I? How can we apply this into our daily living? Well, I guess we can begin with a question. And that question is this: why do you suppose that only these three strange men from the east arriving in downtown, when they said, "Where's the star?" everybody said, "What star?" Only they saw it. Only these magi even noticed. I mean, that's a question worth an answer. May I suggest that the people had convinced themselves that what they were doing and how they were doing it, well, it was good enough. In regards to religion, it's what God wanted. And if you were to ask them, is God with you? Oh, sure, he lives in the temple. Look at our beautiful temple. That's where he lives. They had become so myopically focused on their own power, so anesthetized by their own theology, that the promised Messiah was born in their midst and they did not even notice. Why? Because they were practicing a religion that was sleeping. Why? Because they were practicing a religion that was empty. It was a religion of ritual and not relationship. Good thing there's nobody like that around here. Remember that fable I told you about the life-giving spring? Well, I'm going to tell it to you again. All right, there was once upon a time, there was a spring of life-giving water that bubbled up out of the ground. And people came for miles to drink of its water, and they were refreshed and renewed. This went on for a long time until wealthy people bought that spring, and they put a fence around and started to charge admission. Soon hotels and restaurants, big business sprung up around that spring. Finally, that spring got mad and stopped flowing. It redirected its water to another place. But you know what? The people were so drunk with their power, so myopically focused on their own theology, their narrow theology, they didn't even notice. In fact, they continue to sell tickets to non-existent water. And the funny, well, not funny, amazing, kind of sad thing about it is that the people continue to buy tickets to the non-existing waters. There was a small group of brave people who did notice. And they went out and they searched diligently for the new spring. And as they were seeking, they found it. What about you? What about me? What about our theology? What about our religion? As Christians, we claim Christ as the head of our church, but is he the head of your church? Do you have eyes to see? Do you have ears to hear? God made himself incarnate in flesh in their midst, and nobody even noticed outside of these strange magi from the east. Why? Because nobody took the time to even look up to see the star. That's the key. The Magi saw the star because they were looking for it. Like that small group of brave seekers that went out to look for the spring, they were actively seeking and they found. And what they found was this: I'm right here, and I love you. And I want to get involved in your life. And that, my friend, is what Christmas is all about. If you authentically seek the Father, you will find your Star of Bethlehem. And it's not about a time of year. No, no, no. And let me tell you, it has nothing to do with reindeer, Santa, tinsel, or a Christmas tree. No, it doesn't have anything to do with a Christmas tree. I'll tell you what Christmas is all about. It's about the creator of this universe who spun all of this into existence, putting his finger on your soul and saying, I know exactly who you are, I know what you're going through, and I want to get into the middle of your life, right here, right now. That's Christmas. You find that, and you find something that lasts way longer than a season. The Magi were God's seekers. Maybe this week, let us become Magi. Let us become seekers. And when we find that, we will find the true meaning of Christmas, and it will take us way beyond a season. Oh no, it will take us all the way into eternity. You know, every day in this country, somebody does something nice for somebody else. Today, why don't you let that somebody be you? This is Daily Living. I'm Father Chapin. Hope you can come back next week and we'll do it again. Until then, I hope you let God live in your life. And I bless you in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit.